Waiter insulted Elon Musk in a luxury restaurant, but when he discovered the truth, you won't. The maitre d' had already warned the staff. VIPs tonight. High-end. No mistakes. So when the man walked into Luca's, dressed in a plain black hoodie and worn sneakers, he didn't exactly match the room. Luca's wasn't just expensive, it was exclusive. A place where billionaires drank quietly in corners, and waiters memorized not just names, but net worths. Brandon, the newest server, rolled his eyes as the man was seated at table 9. Probably another influencer pretending to be important, he whispered to a coworker. No watch, no designer jacket, no reservation. Just a calm guy asking for a seat in the back near the window. When he picked up the menu, Brandon walked over with a raised brow. Just so you know, he said, a little too loud. This isn't the kind of place that serves burgers and fries. He smiled, but not kindly. Our cheapest wine is $210 a bottle. Let me know if you'd like water instead. The man looked up slowly, said nothing, and nodded. Water's fine for now. Brandon smirked and walked away. Table 9's window shopping, he muttered. Probably here to take photos and post about how he almost ate at Luca's. What Brandon didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the man at table 9 wasn't just anybody. And before the night was over, Brandon's careless words were going to become the most uncomfortable memory of his career. Because the man he just mocked was about to make a phone call that would flip the restaurant upside down. And within minutes, everyone would know who was sitting at table 9. Brandon didn't give the man at table 9 much thought after that. He brought him a glass of water, without ice, dropped it a little harder than necessary, and walked away before even taking his order. To him, this was just another wannabe slipping into places he didn't belong. Someone who'd probably take a photo of the menu, post it with a dramatic caption, and leave before the check ever hit the table. But 10 minutes later, something changed. One of the assistant managers came out from the back office, phone in hand, eyes scanning the room. He looked stressed, like he'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to. He spoke with the maitre d', who immediately stiffened and glanced toward table 9. Then he pulled Brandon aside. Who's sitting at that table? He asked quietly. Brandon shrugged. Just some guy. Hoodie. No reservation. Why? Did he say his name? No. Didn't ask? The maitre d's face darkened. You didn't ask? Brandon looked confused. Why would I? He clearly isn't. He's Elon Musk. The words landed like a slap. Brandon blinked. What? I just got off the phone with the executive office. Someone from Tesla HQ called. Apparently Mr. Musk is in town. No press, no entourage. He wanted to dine privately. Said he'd be dropping in somewhere discreet. This is where he picked. Brandon turned slowly toward table 9. The man was still sitting there, calm, quiet, looking out the window as if none of this mattered. Like he hadn't just been insulted by someone who didn't recognize him. Like he hadn't been treated. Like a nobody in one of the city's most elite restaurants. And now Brandon felt it. That cold pit in the stomach. The kind that shows up when you realize you didn't just make a mistake. You embarrassed yourself in front of someone who could buy the building you work in and tear it down for fun. The maitre d' adjusted his jacket, straightened his tie, and walked over to table 9 as if a spotlight had been turned on him. Brandon followed a few steps behind, unsure if he should speak, apologize, or just vanish. Elon Musk didn't look up immediately. He was still quietly flipping through the menu, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the page. Mr. Musk, the maitre d' said, voice low, respectful. We apologize for the confusion. Had we known you were coming, we would have prepared. Elon finally looked up, expression unreadable. It's all right, he said. I didn't want special treatment. Behind him, Brandon cleared his throat. Sir, I didn't realize. I'm really sorry if... But Elon raised a hand slightly, not angrily, just enough to pause him. I'm not offended, he said calmly. I get it. I don't exactly dress the part. The maitre d' forced a polite laugh, but Elon wasn't smiling. He set the menu down. I'll just take the lamb, and still water's fine. The maitre d' nodded and turned to Brandon. You heard the man. Then he walked away, clearly eager to disappear into the kitchen. Brandon stood frozen for a moment, then nodded quickly and left the table. But something felt different now. The room had shifted. People had noticed the sudden attention. A few were whispering, pointing subtly. Word was spreading. Elon Musk was here, in a hoodie, at a table by the window. and the server who had just treated him like he didn't belong was now realizing that everyone was watching him. Back in the kitchen, Brandon's nerves were unraveling. One mistake, one slip of arrogance, and now the world's most famous entrepreneur was sitting in his section, quiet, reserved, and very aware of how he'd been treated. He couldn't shake the question, now burning in his head, was Elon the kind of man to let it go? Or was he about to prove just how much power a simple table reservation could carry? The lamb was served without a word. Brandon placed the plate gently on the table, his hands just steady enough to keep it from shaking. Elon gave a polite nod, but didn't speak. He cut into the food slowly, calmly, like he had all the time in the world. He didn't look angry. He didn't look insulted. But that somehow made it worse. There was no drama, no scene, just the quiet weight of being ignored by someone who had every right to respond, and didn't. Brandon hovered near the bar, pretending to organize glasses while watching Elon from a distance. He kept running the moment through in his head. What he said, how he said it. It hadn't even been that harsh, he thought. But now, standing in the same room with someone who could change your life with a single sentence, he realized it wasn't about the words. It was about the attitude, the way he'd dismissed someone because they didn't look important. Halfway through the meal, the restaurant owner arrived. He must have heard the rumors circulating online because he walked in red-faced and rushed, barely out of his coat before heading straight to Elon's table. Brandon watched as the two spoke briefly. Elon was polite but firm. He didn't stand. He didn't want attention. Just a quiet dinner. The owner nodded, apologized, promised everything would be comped. But Elon shook his head. No need. I always pay for what I eat, even if the experience isn't perfect. Then, just as quickly, the owner retreated. Brandon could barely breathe now. He thought maybe he could fix it with an apology, something honest. He approached slowly, stopping just short of the table. "Mr. Musk," he said, voice low, "I was wrong earlier. I made assumptions. I'm sorry for how I treated you." Elon looked up, held his gaze for a moment, and said something Brandon didn't expect. "Thank you for saying that. Most people don't." Then he turned back to his plate. But what happened next was what no one saw coming. Elon finished his meal, paid in cash, and left a tip. Not just any tip. One that would become the talk of the entire industry within 24 hours. And it wasn't the amount that made it go viral. It was what he wrote on the receipt. Brandon didn't see it at first. He was in the back, trying to stay out of the spotlight, half hoping the night would end quietly. But a buzz began building near table 9. Not from Elon. He was already gone. The water glass was empty, the chair neatly pushed in, and the check folded cleanly on the table. It was the hostess who picked it up, blinked twice, and called over the manager in a whisper. Then the maître d', then the owner. Word spread. Fast. A $7,000 tip. On a $240 meal. But it wasn't just the amount that made everyone freeze. It was what Elon had written on the bottom of the receipt, in neat, almost minimalist handwriting. Treat everyone like they matter, because one day, you'll realize they always did. Brandon stood at the edge of the kitchen as the note was passed to him. He read it once, then again. The same warmth that had filled his face when he made that smug joke earlier was now replaced by something colder. Regret. He didn't feel embarrassed because the man was famous. He felt ashamed because he hadn't recognized basic human decency. Not in Elon, not in himself. For days, the note made the rounds online. It was screenshotted, shared, quoted. Elon. Musk leaves a message more valuable than money, the headline said. Some people questioned the story, thought it was staged, but those who had been there knew the truth. Brandon didn't lose his job, but he changed, quietly. He started paying more attention. He listened before speaking. He greeted guests without checking their shoes or their watch, not out of fear, but because he finally understood what Elon had done. He hadn't punished him. He hadn't flexed power. He'd taught a lesson, without raising his voice, without needing revenge. Just a signature, a sentence, and a decision to walk away with dignity. And sometimes, that's what hits the hardest. Because respect isn't something you demand. It's something you leave behind. Months passed. The buzz around the story died down, as viral moments always do. The receipt, once plastered across social media, became just another image buried in the internet's endless scroll. But at Luca's, the restaurant where it happened, it didn't fade. They framed the receipt, not because of the money, but because of the words. A reminder to every new staff member who walked through the door that the man who sat quietly at table 9 taught them something more lasting than status or fame. As for Brandon, he stayed. But he wasn't the same server who once judged people by their clothes. He started learning guests' names, remembering details, treating every table, whether VIP or not, with the same quiet respect. And when people asked if the Elon Musk story was real, he never bragged. He just nodded once and said, "He changed the way I see people." That was all. It would have been easy for Elon to shame him, to expose him, to post about it online, or make a spectacle. But he didn't. He chose something better. He chose to be the kind of person who teaches quietly by example and lets the lesson speak louder than the ego ever could. Not everyone gets a second chance to redeem a moment they got wrong. Brandon did, and he never forgot the man who gave it to him. Because long after the headlines fade and the receipts are forgotten, the way we treat others, that's what really leaves a mark.